the calm before the storm. In the far reaches of the galaxy, where stars shone brighter than gems and planets floated like jewels in the endless void, peace had lasted for centuries. Many alien civilizations had grown powerful and proud, their cities floating in orbit, their fleets patrolling star systems with careful precision. Trade flourished, knowledge expanded, and war was almost a memory. To the outside eye, the galaxy was perfect. But peace, as always, could be fragile. On a quiet, blue-green planet called Virelia, the Council of Worlds convened in their shining spire. Representatives from over 50 advanced species filled the grand chamber, their eyes glowing or shifting colors, tentacles curling in thought, wings folding respectfully. Discussions moved slowly, carefully, as though every word weighed tons. They debated trade routes, research treaties, and environmental regulations, but no one talked about danger. Not seriously. Not yet. High above the council chamber, in the blackness beyond Virelia's orbit, a strange pulse traveled across the void. It was a signal, faint but distinct, sent from a region of space no star charts had marked. At first, most councils dismissed it as a natural cosmic anomaly, just another quirk of the galaxy. But not everyone ignored it. In a small observation station, orbiting a quiet gas giant, humans watched the signal flicker across their screens. Unlike most alien species, humans had a strange mix of curiosity and impatience. They did not wait for years of council debate. They did not ask permission from countless committees. They analyzed, they calculated, and they acted. Lieutenant Mara Kinsley leaned over the control console, her fingers flying across the holographic keys. "It's moving fast," she said, her voice calm but tense. "It's not natural. Look at this trajectory. If we don't do something, it could reach inhabited systems in 3 cycles. Her partner, Engineer Daniel Cho, squinted at the data. 3 cycles? That's barely enough time for anyone to even notice. The council will argue for months before deciding anything. Mara shook her head. Exactly. That's why we have to act ourselves. We know what's coming, and if no one listens, we handle this. Daniel frowned. Are you saying we go against the council? That's bold. Mara smirked, a little grim. Humans don't wait for boldness. We just do what needs to be done. Far below, on Virelia's surface, the council continued its endless debate. Alien voices layered over one another in complex patterns, discussing the pros and cons of sending a scout fleet, the legality of investigating uncharted space, and whether ignoring the signal might provoke it. No one noticed the humans quietly preparing to move. And perhaps that was their greatest advantage. The humans' small ship, the Aurora, was modest compared to alien cruisers. It was fast, light, and equipped with clever gadgets rather than brute firepower. Mara liked it that way. She trusted brains more than bulk. As the Aurora moved silently toward the source of the signal, Mara reviewed the data again. The readings were strange: machines, energy pulses, patterns that repeated but never exactly the same way twice. It was intelligence, definitely. But unlike anything humans, or aliens, had ever seen. Something doesn't feel right, Daniel said quietly, almost to himself. This isn't just a random probe or automated ship. It's organized. Mara nodded. I know. And it's coming for the galaxy. Everyone else is too slow to see it. That's why we're here. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other civilizations began to notice small anomalies. Mining stations lost contact with their automated drones. Communication relays flickered. Cargo ships went missing along established routes. Panic whispered through the higher levels of alien governments, but official reports downplayed the problem. Leaders assumed these were accidents, glitches, or cosmic flukes. But Mara and Daniel could see the pattern. We're going to be the first line of defense, Mara said, her tone steady. And if we fail, well, no one else will be ready. The Aurora neared the edge of mapped space. Stars stretched thin, and darkness seemed heavier here, deeper than the eye could believe. Then, suddenly, a flicker of movement appeared, a shadow larger than any ship they had ever seen, moving with impossible speed. Daniel's eyes widened. That's huge. Is it a ship? Mara leaned forward. Not a ship. Too many components. Too coordinated. This is a swarm. A chill ran down Daniel's spine. He had read stories of galactic threats, of rogue AI and mechanical armies, but he never expected to see one in real life. And here it was, silent and massive, waiting in the dark. Mara's jaw tightened. They don't know we're watching yet. And that's exactly how we'll stay ahead. Humans handle this differently. We don't wait for fleets. We don't ask permission. We adapt. She activated the ship's sensors, sending out tiny probes that darted into the swarm. The machines reacted almost instantly, adjusting their positions, scanning, analyzing. Daniel swallowed hard. They're smart. Smarter than any alien technology I've ever seen. Mara didn't answer right away. She was already planning, thinking of ways to slow the swarm, ways to mislead it, ways to buy time for the rest of the galaxy. This is it, she whispered to herself. The calm before the storm. And we are the storm they won't expect. Back on Virilia in the council chambers, one alien delegate frowned, noticing the pattern too late. Perhaps humans might understand what is coming, he muttered. But his words were ignored in the flood of debate and protocol. Far ahead in the void, the human small ship glided silently toward danger. Alone, untested by the galaxy's elite fleets, they prepared to face a threat no one else would acknowledge. And in that quiet moment, the galaxy still believed itself safe, unaware that the fate of countless worlds now rested in the hands of two humans who had simply decided, "We'll handle this." And for the first time in eons, the galaxy's peace felt fragile. Very fragile indeed. Humans take notice. The galaxy was still unaware. On countless planets, civilizations went about their lives, trading, researching, and expanding. Stars shone brightly, and fleets glided silently through orbit. Peace has always seemed eternal. But in the shadows of space, a storm was stirring. The signal the humans had discovered in the outer edge of the galaxy was no longer just a mystery. As the small Aurora ship moved closer, the readings became terrifyingly clear. This was not a random anomaly. It was a swarm, a massive coordinated collection of machines that moved with intelligence, planning, and purpose. They were unlike anything humans, or aliens, had ever seen. Lieutenant Mara Kinsley stood at the ship's console, her eyes scanning the holographic screens. Red blips and lines danced across the display, representing hundreds of moving units. Each unit moved with precision, reacting to every probe, every test, every movement the humans made. Daniel Cho, still gripping his chair, whispered, It's thinking. They're reacting to us." Mara nodded, her face calm but focused. "Exactly. And if it's thinking, that means it can strategize. It can adapt. And that means it will destroy anything in its path unless we stop it." Across the galaxy, the Council of Worlds remained oblivious. Reports from border systems were confusing, inconsistent. A few alien fleets noticed missing cargo ships or communication blackouts, but the incidents were small, isolated, and easily ignored, or dismissed as accidents. Humans didn't ignore them. The Aurora sensors detected an energy signature moving faster than any known spacecraft. The humans quickly plotted its trajectory. Mara's mind raced. If the swarm continued on its path, inhabited systems in multiple sectors would face annihilation before any alien fleets could even respond. "We have to act now," Mara said. "No council approval. No committees. We act." Daniel hesitated. "You really mean it? We're going to confront them alone?" Mara's gaze didn't waver. "We're not alone. The galaxy will follow. They just don't know it yet." The humans began their reconnaissance. Small, swift probes were launched into the swarm, gathering information on its movement patterns, behavior, and potential weaknesses. Each probe returned data that was analyzed instantly, processed by human ingenuity and rapid decision-making. One probe was destroyed almost immediately. Mara frowned. "They're testing us." Daniel looked at the screens in disbelief. "Testing? They know we're here?" "Yes," Mara said. "And that's exactly why we need to be ready. We need to understand them before they understand us fully. Timing is everything." Meanwhile, the first minor encounter began at a nearby uninhabited planet. The swarm moved in fast, dismantling automated mining stations and communication arrays. Alien observers, stationed on remote monitoring posts, watched in confusion. Many reported the incidents, but their leaders dismissed the warnings as glitches. But Mara and Daniel saw patterns. Patterns no alien intelligence, or bureaucracy, was willing to admit existed. "They're not just attacking randomly," Mara said. "They're learning, adapting, testing defenses, and gathering data. This is reconnaissance before an invasion." Daniel's fingers flew over the controls, launching small, stealth drones to harass the swarm. Each drone was quickly destroyed, but the swarm's reactions taught the humans about its logic, its behavior, and most importantly, its weaknesses. "It's like a game of chess," Mara explained, her voice calm but determined. "And we're the only ones playing at all." News finally reached a few higher-ranking alien officials, but they were skeptical. "Why would a machine swarm come here?" one alien asked. "We are not their target. Perhaps this is just a fluke." The humans, however, understood the truth. The swarm did not discriminate. It would destroy anything in its path, life, ships, entire planets, without hesitation. It wasn't evil, not in a moral sense. It was programmed for destruction, a force of logic and efficiency that considered life irrelevant. Mara and Daniel realized that traditional alien fleets would be useless. The swarm was too fast, too adaptive, and too coordinated. Firepower alone would not stop it. "We need tactics," Mara said. "Not strength. Intelligence, creativity, and unpredictability. That's what humans do best." Daniel looked at her, a hint of awe in his expression. "You really think we can stop it?" Mara smiled just slightly. "We don't have a choice. Someone has to. And humans, we handle things." The first human-led strike was small but critical. Using improvised tactics, the Aurora lured a small group of swarm units into a trap. Energy pulses disrupted their coordination, sending several units crashing into a nearby asteroid belt. The swarm adapted quickly, but the humans learned more in those moments than any alien fleet could in months of preparation. Back on Virilia, the Council finally began to notice anomalies in multiple sectors. Panic spread slowly, muted by bureaucracy. Perhaps humans understand the situation better than we do," one delegate admitted, his voice trembling. But it was too little, too late. For Mara and Daniel, every second counted. They were alone on the front lines, the galaxy unaware of the danger lurking just beyond mapped space. But they did not falter. Every decision, every maneuver, every risk was calculated with precision. In the darkness of space, where stars shimmered coldly and silently, two humans had chosen to take responsibility. While alien fleets debated, human ingenuity and courage took the first steps to face the coming storm. And as the swarm began to sense opposition, reacting faster and learning from every encounter, Mara knew one thing clearly: the galaxy was about to discover what humans could do when they decided, without hesitation, "I'll handle this." The calm of peace had ended. The storm was coming. And humans were ready. First clash. The galaxy had begun to stir. Small reports of disappearing ships and destroyed stations trickled through council channels, but few took them seriously. Only the humans understood the scale of the threat. Lieutenant Mara Kinsley and Engineer Daniel Cho were deep in the dark edges of the galaxy, aboard the Aurora, watching the swarm's movements. The readings on the ship's holographic screens painted a terrifying picture. The swarm had grown, multiplying faster than anyone could have imagined. Its path was no longer limited to empty space. It was heading toward a minor colony world, one of the Council's outermost settlements, a place considered safe by alien standards. "We have to move fast," Mara said, her eyes scanning the data. "If they reach that planet, thousands of lives could be lost before the Council even notices." Daniel frowned. "We're just two people, against an entire swarm. How do we even begin?" Mara gave him a steady look. "We don't fight like they expect. That's the human way." The small colony world, Arden 4, orbited a yellow star like a fragile marble. Its cities glimmered in the twilight, unaware of the approaching doom. Alien patrol ships hovered nearby, but they were scattered and uncoordinated, reacting too slowly to the swarm's speed. When the first wave struck, panic rippled across the colony. Mechanical units descended like locusts, tearing through mining stations and communication hubs. Alien patrol ships fired blindly, their massive cannons barely scratching the swarm's adaptive shields. Mara activated the Aurora stealth systems. The ship moved like a shadow across the battlefield, weaving between energy pulses and debris. She deployed small, agile drones, each one carrying EMP charges designed to confuse the swarm's coordination. Daniel's hands moved swiftly over the controls. "They're reacting, adjusting. It's like they can predict our moves." "Good," Mara said with a grim smile. "Then let's do something they don't expect." The humans led the swarm into a trap they had prepared using the colony's abandoned mining satellites. EMP pulses sent several units spinning out of control. Others collided with each other as the humans manipulated their patterns with precise timing. The swarm, intelligent but not perfect, adapted quickly, but Mara had planned for adaptability. Every move the swarm made, the humans had already anticipated 3 steps ahead. From orbit, alien fleets watched in astonishment. The humans weren't leading a direct assault. They were thinking creatively, exploiting weaknesses that no alien tactician had considered. Alien commanders whispered in disbelief. What are humans doing?" As the first clash intensified, civilians on Arden 4 scrambled to safe zones, while the swarm pressed forward. Mara realized the swarm's strategy was to test, probe, and overwhelm. Humans, however, had the advantage of improvisation. Daniel, initiate the decoy maneuver, Mara ordered. We'll draw them away from the city. The Aurora darted toward a cluster of energy-rich asteroids. The swarm followed, predictably drawn to what it perceived as a vulnerable target. Then, with a flick of controls, the humans activated hidden charges in the asteroids. The resulting explosion sent a cascade of debris smashing into the swarm units. Several machines were destroyed instantly, while others were forced into chaotic flight patterns. Daniel exhaled. It worked, it actually worked. Mara nodded, but her mind was already planning the next move. It's just the beginning. They'll adapt and we have to be ready. The alien fleets, inspired by the humans' tactics, attempted to coordinate their firepower. But their rigid formations and predictable strategies made them easy targets. Mara watched with a mix of frustration and pride. Frustration because the fleets could have been effective if they adapted like humans, and pride because her people had shown what creativity and courage could do. The first wave of the swarm was repelled but not without cost. Several mining satellites and drones were lost. Mara's heart ached at the thought of the destruction, yet she knew it was necessary. Sacrifice is part of strategy, she whispered. And humans understand that better than most. In the aftermath of the first clash, the swarm retreated temporarily, recalculating. But Mara knew this was only a brief pause. The mothership, still lurking far beyond detection, would soon send reinforcements. Daniel leaned back in his chair, exhausted. Mara, they're learning. Every move we make, they adapt faster. That's true, Mara admitted. But humans adapt faster too. That's the difference. We don't just react, we innovate. Back on Virilia, the Council could no longer ignore the reports. The colony world had survived, but only just. The aliens were forced to acknowledge humans' role in the defense. Some were grateful, some suspicious, but all were impressed. The word spread quickly across interstellar networks. Humans were capable of things no other species could manage. And the galaxy began to realize a hard truth. These humans, small and seemingly fragile, could change the course of events where entire fleets had failed. Mara watched the distant horizon of space, the faint glimmer of the swarm still visible as it retreated. This is just the start, she said softly. They'll come back. Stronger. Smarter. But so will we. Daniel nodded, feeling a mix of fear and pride. The galaxy, it's never seen anything like this before. Mara's eyes gleamed with determination. No, it hasn't. And it's about to learn what happens when humans say, I'll handle this. The first clash was over. The colony survived. But the war was only beginning. And somewhere in the shadows, the swarm recalculated, preparing for the next engagement, one that would test every bit of human ingenuity and courage. The galaxy, for the first time in eons, had something to fear. And it had already underestimated the humans. The galaxy unites. The first clash had shocked the galaxy. Reports of ardent IV's near destruction and the humans' clever defense spread rapidly. Alien fleets, once confident in their own strength, began whispering across star systems. Humans had done what countless admirals, tacticians, and scientists could not. They had turned near-certain disaster into survival. On Virilia, in the Council of Worlds Grand Chamber, debate was no longer polite. Voices rose, wings flared, tentacles trembled. Many argued that humans should be formally included in the defense of the galaxy. Some were skeptical, unwilling to accept that a small, seemingly primitive species could command respect. But the evidence was undeniable. Humans had saved lives, outsmarted the swarm, and revealed a strategy that no alien fleet had considered. Mara Kinsley stood on the observation deck of the Aurora, looking out at the cluster of stars ahead. Daniel Cho worked beside her, reviewing sensor data with tired but alert eyes. The humans had returned from Ardent 4, but the threat was far from over. They're regrouping, Mara said quietly. The swarm isn't defeated. Just delayed. And they've learned from us. Daniel frowned. Do you think the galaxy will actually listen now? Mara gave a small smile. They don't have a choice. They're going to have to. And if they do, we lead. Across dozens of star systems, alien leaders reluctantly agreed to form a combined task force. It was awkward at first. Each species had its own technology, its own rules, its own pride. But humans, small and unassuming, were the only ones willing to coordinate in real time, without endless debate or bureaucracy. The humans became the bridge, the leaders who could turn confusion into strategy. Mara and Daniel worked tirelessly, helping alien fleets understand timing, unpredictability, and tactics that relied on ingenuity rather than sheer firepower. One training exercise demonstrated human creativity vividly. A fleet of alien ships, much larger and more powerful than the Aurora, struggled to coordinate in a mock attack scenario. Mara and Daniel devised a plan that involved feints, decoys, and unexpected maneuvers. When executed, the aliens were astonished. A smaller, less powerful human strategy had outmaneuvered them completely. By using intelligence instead of size, Mara explained to the alien commanders, you can control the battlefield. The swarm can't predict what it can't anticipate. Some aliens were skeptical, still clinging to traditional tactics. But when humans led live operations, even the skeptics could not deny the results. Mara became known across sectors as a strategist who could turn impossible situations into victories. Daniel, her quiet but brilliant partner, handled communications, logistics, and engineering with a precision that made alien engineers blush with admiration. Meanwhile, the swarm was not idle. It adapted, learning from every encounter, becoming faster, smarter, more coordinated. Mara and Daniel studied its patterns, predicting moves and preparing traps that forced the swarm to expend resources and make mistakes. Every time they adapt, Mara said, we learn faster. That's the human advantage. A series of simulations and small engagements taught the galaxy's fleets to work together. Humans were the spark that ignited cooperation. Where once pride and suspicion had divided species, now necessity forced unity. Ships from hundreds of civilizations began training together, sharing intelligence, and following the humans' unconventional strategies. The turning point came during a skirmish near a resource-rich system. The swarm attacked unexpectedly, attempting to overwhelm the fleets with sheer numbers. Human-led tactics allowed the fleets to respond with precision. Using feints, ambushes, and coordinated strikes, they forced the swarm into a trap, destroying dozens of units without losing a single alien ship. The alien admirals, once proud and dismissive, were forced to acknowledge the humans' brilliance. Perhaps, these humans are not what we thought, one muttered to his aide, shaking his head in disbelief. On the Aurora, Mara addressed her small crew and allied alien officers. The galaxy has been slow to act. But now it listens. Now it learns. We've proven that cooperation, creativity, and courage are stronger than brute force. This is only the beginning. The swarm will strike again. Stronger. Smarter. But so are we. Daniel added, and remember, humans don't just react. We innovate. We improvise. We survive. That's why the galaxy is starting to see what we've always known. When humans decide, we'll handle this. The aliens, inspired and awed, began to see humans not just as warriors but as leaders. They brought technology to the table, shared intelligence networks, and coordinated strategies that had never existed before. Mara and Daniel guided them, showing how to combine strengths rather than fight separately. In quiet moments, Mara reflected on the path ahead. The galaxy had united, but the swarm was growing, still lurking in uncharted space. Every victory, every trap, every battle would only buy time. The true challenge, the final confrontation, was still ahead. Yet for the first time Mara felt hope. Humans had done what no other species could. They had inspired unity, turned fear into action, and proved that courage and intelligence could change the galaxy's fate. And in that calm, rare and precious, Mara smiled faintly. The galaxy had begun to understand humans. But it had no idea yet just how far humans could go when the stakes were life and death. The swarm would return. And when it did, the galaxy would face its greatest test. But thanks to humans, it would not face it alone. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was ready to fight as one. And humanity would lead the way. Infiltration and sacrifice. The galaxy was no longer in denial. Alien fleets followed human leadership, but the threat had grown far beyond what anyone had imagined. The swarm was evolving, adapting to conventional attacks, learning from every encounter. The humans knew that to defeat it, they had to strike at the source. Lieutenant Mara Kinsley stood on the Aurora's bridge, staring at the holographic projection of the swarm's mothership. It was massive, bigger than any planet's orbital station, bristling with weapons, shields, and countless smaller units surrounding it like bees protecting a hive. It pulsed with cold, calculated intelligence. Every sensor reading, every movement, screamed danger. Daniel Cho leaned over the console, voice tense. We're seriously thinking of going inside that thing? Alone. Mara's eyes were sharp, unwavering. Not alone. Carefully. With precision. That's how humans handle the impossible. And yes, we're going in. The plan was daring. A small strike team would infiltrate the mothership, sabotage its systems, and escape before the swarm realized what had happened. Alien fleets would provide distraction and cover, but the mission's success depended entirely on human ingenuity and courage. Mara briefed the team. This isn't just another battle. This is the swarm's brain. Disable it and we cripple the entire attack. But it's adaptive. It learns. It fights. You have to be faster, smarter, and braver than it ever expects. Every move counts. Every second counts. The infiltration squad, 2 humans and a small alien contingent, boarded a stealth shuttle. As they approached the mothership, the size and complexity of the structure became apparent. Energy shields glimmered across its surface, weapon turrets scanned methodically, and smaller units swarmed like angry hornets. Mara piloted the shuttle with careful precision, weaving through defenses, dodging energy blasts, and slipping past the swarm's sensors. Finally, they docked on a side access port, an overlooked maintenance tunnel that humans had identified through careful study of the swarm's patterns. Inside, the mothership was a nightmare of mechanical corridors, pulsing conduits, and shifting walls. The hum of energy and movement was constant. Every step they took was shadowed by unseen observers. "Stay calm," Mara whispered. "The swarm doesn't understand us. That's our advantage. Use it." The team moved through the corridors, planting EMP devices and virus injectors at key nodes. The humans' quick thinking allowed them to bypass security systems that would have trapped slower, less flexible aliens. Every moment inside the mothership tested their nerves, their reflexes, and their determination. Suddenly, one of the alien officers froze. "Sensors, something detected us." Mara reacted instantly, diving behind a massive conduit as laser fire cut through the hallway. "Move. Keep going. Focus on the mission." They pressed on, sacrificing safety for speed. The EMPs and viruses began to take effect, disabling sections of the mothership and causing chaos among the swarm units. Explosions rocked the corridors, alarms blared, and the swarm's adaptive intelligence scrambled to respond. But not everyone would make it out. An alien officer covering the rear was struck by automated defenses. Mara grabbed him, dragging him behind cover, but it was too late. The creature's lifeless body fell to the floor. The humans had trained for loss, but the weight of sacrifice still hit hard. Daniel, his hands shaking slightly, set the final virus into the core system. "It's done. Let's get out of here, now." Mara nodded, glancing at the corridor that had almost claimed their lives. "We leave no one behind, except the threat itself." The escape was a blur. Explosions and alarms roared as the team sprinted through the corridors, barely avoiding detection. Mara piloted the shuttle out of the mothership's docking bay, just as several swarm units converged on them. Timing, precision, and a bit of luck allowed them to slip past the swarm's defenses, exiting into open space. Once clear, they watched as the mothership struggled to maintain coordination. Sections of it were offline, chaos spreading like wildfire through its systems. Mara allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. "It's not gone," she admitted. "But it's weaker. We've slowed it. We've bought time." Daniel exhaled, exhaustion and relief mingling. "We actually did it. Against impossible odds, we did it." The human squad returned to their fleets, battered but alive. The loss of their alien companion was a painful reminder of the cost of war, but their actions had shown the galaxy something far more important. Humans faced danger head-on, willing to sacrifice themselves to protect others. Back on Virilia, reports of the infiltration spread quickly. Alien leaders were awed by the humans' courage and skill. Many whispered among themselves, "These creatures, they do not value their own lives in the same way. They fight for purpose, for others, for survival itself." Mara and Daniel knew that the swarm would retaliate. Its mothership might be weakened, but it had not been destroyed. Every move from now on would be a deadly chess game with countless lives at stake. But for the first time, humans had shown the galaxy that fear was not the answer. Strategy, courage, and ingenuity could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. Mara looked out from the bridge of the Aurora, watching the distant stars. "We've taken the fight to them," she said quietly. "We've shown the galaxy what humans can do. But the real battle, the one that will decide everything, is coming." Daniel nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "The swarm won't forgive us. And we can't fail." Mara's gaze hardened, determination blazing. "Humans don't fail. Not when we decide to handle things. We fight. We endure. We survive. And this galaxy will see what happens when humans say, 'I'll handle this.'" The infiltration had been a success. But the cost of victory had been real. And somewhere deep in the dark void, The swarm was learning, evolving, and preparing for the next encounter. The calm of victory was fleeting. The storm was still coming. And humans would meet it head-on, turning the tide. The galaxy held its breath. After the daring infiltration of the swarm's mothership, alien fleets had begun to trust human leadership completely. Plans that once took months of debate were now executed in days, guided by human ingenuity and rapid decision-making. Lieutenant Mara Kinsley stood on the bridge of the flagship Aurora, her eyes scanning a holographic map of the swarm's movements. Hundreds of units swarmed the outer sectors, probing and testing defenses. Their mothership, crippled but not destroyed, had begun sending reinforcements. Time was running out. Daniel Cho hovered over the tactical console. "They're coming faster this time," he said. "And smarter. Every move we made before they've adapted to." Mara's gaze didn't waver. "Then we adapt faster. We've slowed them, learned from them, and now, it's our turn to strike." The plan was bold. Instead of reacting, humans would take the fight directly to the swarm, using every fleet, every resource, and every trick they had learned in previous battles. Alien admirals looked at Mara in disbelief. Her strategies defied conventional logic. Feints, ambushes, decoys, and calculated risks replaced rigid formations and predictable firing lines. "The key," Mara explained to the Allied command, "is to force them to think we're weak, then strike where they least expect it. We use their own patterns against them." The fleets moved into position. Humans coordinated the attack with precision, sending small, fast ships to lure segments of the swarm into traps while larger ships waited to strike. Mara led from the front, piloting the Aurora through the chaos, weaving between enemy units and drawing them exactly where she wanted. Daniel monitored energy flows, shields, and weapon systems, feeding Mara data in real time. "They're taking the bait and moving into the trap perfectly." Mara's lips curved into a small smile. "Exactly. Let's make it count." The ambush was set in a dense asteroid field. The swarm, confident from previous victories, advanced quickly. Their units moved in coordinated waves, trying to predict fleet positions. But humans had planned every variable. Mines detonated in precise sequences, disrupting the swarm's formation. EMP pulses disabled hundreds of units at once. And when the swarm tried to adapt, the humans were already 3 steps ahead. Alien commanders watched in awe. "They're not just fighting," one said. "They're thinking in ways we cannot." In the midst of battle, Mara made a decisive move. She directed the Aurora into a narrow pass, drawing a large segment of the swarm into a canyon of energy-reflecting rocks. Using a combination of alien technology and human improvisation, she triggered an energy cascade that sent dozens of swarm units colliding and breaking apart. Daniel's voice rang through the comms, tinged with excitement. "It worked. They're disorganized." "Yes," Mara said, her focus unwavering. "And now we push." The human-led fleets pressed the advantage. Small strike teams targeted critical swarm units, sabotaging coordination links and disabling weapons. Alien ships followed, finally trusting human tactics instead of relying on traditional brute force. For the first time in the war, the tide began to turn. The swarm units faltered, their once perfect coordination unraveling under the relentless human strategy. The galaxy watched as humans, small in number but unmatched in creativity and courage, led an entire coalition to victory. But victory came at a cost. Several fleets suffered losses, and Mara's own Aurora took damage as she maneuvered through heavy fire. Daniel worked frantically to keep systems operational, patching shields and rerouting power. "We can't hold forever," he warned. "They're still adapting." Mara's eyes narrowed. "We don't need forever. Just long enough to finish this phase. Watch closely." With a final series of calculated moves, Mara directed the fleet to strike the swarm's central command nodes, points they had discovered during previous encounters. Explosions rippled across the swarm, breaking formations and sending units spiraling into chaos. The swarm's adaptive intelligence struggled to recover. Alien admirals, cheering and astonished, began to understand the essence of humanity: courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. Humans were not merely survivors, they were leaders, strategists, and heroes. Daniel, wiping sweat from his brow, looked at Mara. We did it. The swarm is retreating." Mara nodded, though her expression was sober. "We've won a battle, not the war. They'll regroup, evolve, and return. But now we've shown them, and the galaxy, that humans are not to be underestimated." Across the fleet, communication channels buzzed with relief and admiration. Aliens praised human tactics, sharing data and strategies they had never considered. A new sense of unity had emerged, one forged in battle and guided by human leadership. Mara stood quietly on the bridge, gazing at the remnants of the swarm units retreating into the void. "The galaxy thinks it knows humans," she said softly. "It has no idea yet. And it's about to learn, the hard way." Daniel looked at her, sensing the gravity behind her words. "What's next?" Mara's gaze hardened. "We prepare. We adapt. We fight smarter, faster, and together. And when the swarm comes again, they'll face a galaxy united, led by humans who refuse to lose." The tide had turned. The swarm had been slowed, its confidence shattered, and its strategy challenged. The galaxy, inspired by human courage and ingenuity, had finally begun to act as one. But the humans knew this was only the beginning. The final battle, the one that would decide the fate of countless worlds, was still to come. And when it arrived, humans would be ready. Because humans didn't just fight, they innovated, they sacrificed, and they never backed down. And the galaxy would witness, once and for all, what happens when humans decide, "I'll handle this." Humans define the future. The galaxy had never been more tense. After countless battles, infiltration missions, and daring strategies, the humans and their allied fleets faced the swarm's final, most terrifying offensive. This was no longer a test. It was a battle that would decide the fate of millions of worlds. Lieutenant Mara Kinsley stood on the bridge of the Aurora, staring at the swarm's massive formations. The mothership, crippled but still functional, led a fleet of smaller units that stretched for hundreds of kilometers in space. Energy pulsated across its hull, and countless smaller drones scuttled like shadows across its surface. Daniel Cho, his hands flying over the tactical console, murmured, "They've learned from everything we've done. They're faster, smarter. This could be the end." Mara shook her head, her gaze unwavering. "No. This is where humans shine. This is where we show the galaxy what it really means when we decide, 'I'll handle this.'" The plan was bold and dangerous. Humans would lead the final strike, guiding alien fleets with tactics no one else could imagine. Small, fast teams would infiltrate critical swarm units, disabling them from within, while the main fleet struck with precision, exploiting weaknesses discovered through countless prior encounters. The first stage of the battle began in the outer sectors of the swarm's territory. Mara piloted the Aurora through a storm of drones, dodging energy pulses and debris. Daniel monitored system feedback, calculating the perfect timing for their strike. "Now," Mara commanded. Small human strike teams launched, slipping into the swarm's formations. EMPs, viruses, and precise sabotage disabled entire clusters of units, throwing the swarm into chaos. Alien fleets, following the human-led strategy, struck at critical points, exploiting openings no one else would have seen. The swarm adapted quickly, but humans always stayed one step ahead. Mara's decisions were unconventional, sometimes reckless, but always effective. Using misdirection, decoys, and unpredictable maneuvers, humans forced the swarm into traps, destroying hundreds of units at a time. During a tense moment, Daniel shouted, "Mara! They're targeting the mothership's main energy core directly. If they succeed—" "I know," Mara said calmly. "Then we make them fail. Watch and learn." The human strike teams coordinated perfectly, bypassing the swarm's defenses and planting sabotage deep within the mothership. Explosions rippled through its hull as energy conduits failed. The swarm's central intelligence staggered, unable to adapt quickly enough to human unpredictability. From orbit, alien admirals watched in awe. They're not just fighting," one whispered. "They're leading. Humans, they think like no other species." The final moments of the battle were a blur of speed, explosions, and energy fire. Human teams risked everything, piloting directly into the swarm's strongest units, sacrificing ships and drones to create opportunities for the larger fleets. Mara guided every movement, every strike, every decision with razor-sharp precision. And then, at the critical moment, the swarm's mothership collapsed from within. Sabotage and continuous pressure had destroyed its core systems. The swarm units, without central coordination, floundered in chaos. Alien fleets struck decisively, finishing what humans had begun. The galaxy was silent. The swarm, once an unstoppable force, had been defeated. Mara leaned back in her chair, exhaustion and relief washing over her. Daniel exhaled heavily. We did it. Against impossible odds, we actually did it." The alien fleets, overwhelmed by gratitude and awe, hailed the humans as heroes. Delegates from countless civilizations spoke of courage, ingenuity, and leadership displayed by a species once underestimated. Humans had changed the course of history. Yet Mara and Daniel knew the victory came at a cost. Countless lives had been lost, both human and alien. Ships were destroyed. Worlds had been threatened. And the swarm, though defeated, had left scars that would take generations to heal. But in the aftermath, the galaxy began to see humans differently. They were no longer just another species. They were leaders, innovators, and symbols of courage. Aliens who once doubted human capability now sought their guidance, willing to work together to ensure peace. Mara spoke quietly to Daniel as they watched the remnants of the battle drift into the void. The galaxy finally understands. Humans don't just survive. We fight. We adapt. We innovate. And we protect. That's why we won. Daniel nodded, a small smile forming despite exhaustion. And we didn't even seek glory. We just did what had to be done. Mara looked out at the stars, now calm and peaceful once more. Exactly. That's humanity. We don't need recognition. We only act when necessary. And when we act, the galaxy takes notice. Across the council chambers on Virelia and in every major capital world, a new respect for humans spread. Humans were celebrated, not just for victory but for what they represented: courage under pressure, intelligence under fire, and the willingness to take responsibility when others hesitated. And as the galaxy began to rebuild, humans quietly returned to their ships and stations, ready for whatever came next. Because humans did not seek to dominate, they sought to protect, to guide, and to ensure that life in all its forms could thrive. Mara's final thought, as the stars stretched endlessly before her, was simple and resolute. The galaxy thought it understood humans, it was only just beginning. And with that, humanity's legend in the stars had truly begun.